House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is heading to Asia tonight. This after Chinese President Xi Jinping warned President Biden yesterday about playing with fire. It's still uncertain if Pelosi's trip will include a stop in Taiwan, which comes with its own set of security ramifications. Pelosi's trip comes as the timeline for a possible Chinese invasion of Taiwan is speeding up. Officials were previously eyeing an invasion between 2025 and 2030, but now many experts believe China may make a move against the island nation within the next 18 months. Joining us now is our panel of China experts, the president of the Rogue States Project, Harry Kazianis, and the director of Senior Fellow of Chinese Strategy at the Hudson Institute and author of The 100-Year Marathon, Michael Pillsbury. Gentlemen, good to see you both. Harry, I want to start with you. Pelosi seems to be, because I like to say this is a vanity tour. It's a farewell tour. She knows she's got out of Congress. She's putting our national security at risk. Take a look at this tweet from the Chinese state-affiliated media. This was put out this afternoon. If U.S. fighter jets escort Pelosi's plane into Taiwan, it is invasion. The PLA has the right to forcibly dispel Pelosi's plane and the U.S. fighter jets, including firing warning shots and making tactical movement of obstruction. Ineffective, then shooting them down. How concerned should the American people be about this thing escalating real quick?
Well, Sean, it seems like Nancy Pelosi might be going out with a bang, with your reference to her maybe, retiring or leaving Congress at some point in the near future. She's in her 80s. I mean, look, I don't understand why this trip is happening now. I mean, obviously, she has the opportunity to go to Asia, make that big splash. But what's really concerning here, Sean, is Chinese media, and I think you're referencing a tweet that came out from a journalist at Global Times, basically threatening to shoot down her plane. I mean, this reminds me of an incident that happened in 2001 called the Hainan Island incident, where basically a Chinese fighter jet got very close to a U.S. surveillance plane, crashed into it, and we had an incident. These are the type of accidents and mistakes that can happen. I'm not really worried, Sean, that they're going to shoot down the plane, but what if a Chinese fighter jet gets too close, hot dogs, thinks they're doing some sort of Top Gun maneuver or something like that? I mean, these are the risks that we have. And tweets like that, and incendiary tweets, they don't help matters at all. They're just plain stupid.
No, Michael, that's what I want to play off of. We are now in that situation. It's almost like a Cuban Missile Crisis thing where one side thinks the other side is doing something, and it escalates real quick. My concern is this. Pelosi goes to Taiwan. China's already said it has to retaliate. And then whatever they do, we then have to retaliate, right? And then we start going, where does it end?
Well, that's the main problem, I think. I agree with you, Sean. Part of what's going on here is that point about if American fighter jets escort Nancy Pelosi's airplane. We made a deal, good or bad, that under the so-called one China policy, that we will not have any military visits to Taiwan. We don't have arms stored there. We don't do joint exercises with them. We don't do war planning. So they're sensitive about what does this mean. They're as is well known, they're paranoid about Taiwan. So they don't believe our claim, Biden's claim, that nothing's changed. They think there must be some nefarious purpose behind this Nancy Pelosi visit. You and I know it's a codel. They make visits all the time. It doesn't mean anything. But from China's point of view, what Nancy Pelosi says and the way this trip is handled could, in fact, provoke them quite a bit. Now, if it's intentional that Biden wants to provoke China, that's fine. But I'm just worried that Nancy Pelosi is going to say something and does not understand the policy involved and is going to provoke something that Biden is trying to head off the trip and put pressure on her not to go. But obviously, Sean, she's very defensive about being pro-China. She would not cooperate with the Republican task force 3 years ago at all. So this is a good, as you pointed out, a kind of a vanity move for her that she's tough on China. But the consequences could be really bad if she says the wrong thing.
So, Harry, let's just say for the sake of argument that they've never officially, that she's going to all these Asian countries, that she doesn't end up going to Taiwan. What signal does that send?
It makes us look weak. And I think what it does is kind of like Michael, sort of alliterated to, is that the administration is not on the same page. I mean, if Nancy Pelosi isn't speaking with Joe Biden about what her intentions are with this trip, what the overall strategy is, it doesn't make sense. And there's a larger problem here, Sean. Remember the pivot to Asia back during the Obama years? That never happened. The Biden administration, before the war in Ukraine, seemed like they were going in that direction again. Never used the word pivot, but it seemed like they were going to have that focus on China, just like Donald Trump. But now we don't really have a China policy anymore. We're giving all these arms to Ukraine, which I think is the right move. But at the same time, once again, we're not doing much on China besides potential trips that could create problems and not help U.S. interests. So right now, I think we have really no strong policy on China except these strange visits, which don't make any sense at all.
Right. Michael, yesterday the two presidents spoke. In the readout of the call, China's saying that the White House lied in theirs, saying that Biden and Xi talked about genocide and forced labor. That's a pretty big thing to say, to come out and say the White House lied about their readout.
Well, the Chinese might be right. 2.5 hours is a pretty long time for even allowing for simultaneous translation. This is another example of when Biden's had these long phone calls with Xi Jinping, and then they're summarized in 3 or 4 sentences. I was quite intrigued this time, Sean, when it said at the end of the White House readout, our 2 teams will get together and work on this in the future. What in the world are the 2 teams going to work on? That, to me, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but that, to me, is a pretty strong signal that there's something cooperative going on between Biden and Xi Jinping, that his teams have to follow up on it. What in the world did they say in those 2 hours and 15 minutes?
Yeah, I agree. Real quick, I want to ask you guys, yes or no, does she go? Harry, yes or no, does she go?
1,000% yes.
Michael, yes or no, does she go to Taiwan?
Probably not. At the last minute, there'll be a decision that not to go, and they'll think up some good reason for it. There's just too much pressure from the White House and the Pentagon.
Okay.
Nancy's own pro-China attitude.
I got to go. Michael and Harry, I appreciate it. Thank you both. Have a great weekend.
Hey guys, it's Rob Carson. I want to tell you about the Patriot Gold Group. But first, let me tell you that the S&P has already lost $8.2 trillion in 2022. Did you know that? Peak inflation is not even hit despite the Fed rate hikes on groceries, on gas. You know it as well as I do. Morgan Stanley and Goldman Sachs are warning of another 20% drop. Inflation is winning in a knockout right now. The Fed is going to raise rates again at the end of July. Meanwhile, Goldman, Wells Fargo, and Bloomberg are all forecasting gold to surpass all-time highs. If you want to invest in gold, call 888-936-2373 now. Call the Patriot Gold Group today and ask about their no-fee-for-life IRA. Sounds like a good deal, don't it? Here's the number, 888-936-2373. 888-936-2373 for the Patriot Gold Group.